I never thought a simple act of kindness would help my daughter walk again. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. The hospital room felt cold. The air was thick, like swallowing jagged glass. I remember gripping the chair, waiting for the doctor. His face was a mask, cold and hard to read. "She may never walk again," he said. My heart shattered. That my sweet Ellie, a bright light in my life, lay there, tiny and fragile. She was only 8 years old, her spirit still so alive, but her legs were trapped. I could see the shadows of sorrow in her eyes. They had run every test. They tried every treatment. Nothing worked. Tears streamed down my face. Each sob echoed in the sterile room, a reminder of fading hope. Just last summer, we danced in the park, her laughter ringing like a symphony. Now, she couldn't even sit up. I felt my heartbeat in my ears, a constant drum, quickening with every tick of the clock. I was desperate. I would do anything. The thought consumed me. Ideas swirled in my mind. Maybe a miracle. Maybe this wasn't the end. That night, I made a vow. I prayed to the universe. I asked for help. I even whispered it into the empty darkness. Then, a sudden knock thundered on our front door. My heart leaped. A stranger stood there, wrapped in shadows and questions. He introduced himself as a healer. His eyes glimmered, holding promises I desperately craved. "I can help," he said, voice low and soothing. I was skeptical. Could this be real? Or just another false glimmer? He held out his hand, and something sparkled, an ancient, intricate charm. The air shifted, electric and tense. I could feel it hum between us, a pulse of possibility. It pulled at every fiber in me. Did I dare? My mind raced. In that moment, the world shrank to just us two. Could a simple act of kindness, a stranger's goodwill, really hold the power to change everything? So many questions danced in my head. What if it didn't work? What if it did? The silence was deafening. I held my breath, searching for strength in the unknown. I was standing at a crossroads, staring into the abyss of desperation and hope. Could this be the lifeline we were waiting for? I took a step forward, the weight of the world on my shoulders. Hope flickered, like the last light of a dying star. "What do I have to lose?" I whispered. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The room felt lighter, momentarily freed from the weight of despair, as I clutched the healer's dusty charm. Ellie, nestled in her bed, seemed to glow faintly like the embers of a fire that flickered but refused to extinguish. I glanced over at her, her tiny brows furrowed with concentration as she tried to sit up. A small, determined smile broke through the clouds of her pain. Perhaps she sensed the shift, perhaps hope was contagious. "Mommy, what's that?" Her eyes, already recovering a spark of mischief, were locked onto the charm in my palm with wonder instead of fear. "It's a special gift," I stammered, unsure how to explain without burdening her fragile heart. I leaned closer, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear. "It's to help you feel better." My own doubt lingered like a shadow, but I pushed it aside, team spirit igniting within me. The healer's promise buzzed in my veins, mixing with the urgency to shield her from despair. As the night wore on, I sat next to Ellie's bed, recounting stories of our past, each tale filling the room with warmth. I spoke of the park, of skating across the frozen lake, of summer picnics beneath the sprawling oak tree. With each laugh we shared, I felt a faint rhythm of recovery, as if her spirit was tightening its grip on life, wrestling against the dismal reality that plagued us. but with the dawn came a harsh reminder of our struggle. The doctor's visit loomed, his heavy footsteps echoing down the corridor. I bit my lip, fighting against the swell of anxiety. The healer's words hung in the air like a fog I can help. I needed faith. I needed strength that I in that moment of solitude, I stepped out into the crisp morning, the chill biting at my skin, and took a deep breath. Closing my eyes, I felt a tear escape my lashes, mixing with the cold air on my cheek. Help us, I whispered to the universe, my heart breaking open. Maybe this was my test, a battle against doubt, despair, and fear. Then came a hand on my shoulder, warm, grounding. A neighbor, Mrs. Thompson. Her silver hair shimmered under the morning sun, and her kindness wrapped around me like a blanket. I brought you some muffins, she said, her voice soft and soothing. You both are in my thoughts, dear. Thank you, I managed, grateful for her gesture amid the chaos. The mundane connection pulled me momentarily into reality, reminding me that kindness still existed outside my turbulent world. As I took a muffin from her, our fingers brushed, a quiet bond of compassion forged in the heat of hardship. Remember, it's not just about the healing, she continued, her gaze both wise and tender. It's also about love. The love you give to her is the true magic. Those words clung to me, wrapped in hope. I returned to Ellie, her laughter filling the room like music. But with each passing hour, the hopeful air began to feel more like a fragile bubble, ready to burst. Later that afternoon, as the doctor arrived, his expression flat as he examined Ellie, I felt my heart racing. He uttered words about therapy and expectations, but they were like distant murmurs. All I could focus on was the tightening in my chest, the desire for Ellie to experience this miraculous healing everyone spoke about, yet dreading the potential verdict they might deliver. Shall we try? He inquired, glancing at the edge of her bed, where I sat, tense and ready for anything. Can we? My voice trembled, filled with an odd mix of fear and fervor. They helped Ellie sit on the edge, her legs dangling, a stretch that felt monumental. My heart soared, shattered, and surged as she hesitated, her expression twisting between uncertainty and determination. I can do it, Mommy, she said, the whisper of conviction barely audible against the hard silence of the room, but just as she swung her legs around, a sudden tremor rippled through her. Her hands shook, the shadows returning to her eyes. The room shifted as if time itself held its breath. Ellie, I called out, heart pounding, but her gaze was distant, lost. The hope fueling my spirit began to crack as the shadows engulfed her once more. At that moment, an urgent knock sounded at the door. Startled, I turned, my pulse racing as panic clawed at my throat. Who could that be? I thought, dread creeping beneath my skin, knowing that it was a moment that could change everything or tumble us deeper into despair. The door creaked open. A figure stood in the threshold, drenched in mystery, but two words slipped from their lips, sending chills down my spine. "I'm back." The figure in the doorway stepped forward, and as the light streamed in, casting shadows across the floor, I felt time slow to a near standstill. The familiar face of Jacob, the healer I'd sought in desperation months ago, had returned, bringing with him a sense of palpable tension that filled the room like a storm cloud. Jacob. My voice barely rose above a whisper, as if saying his name too loudly might shatter the moment. My heart fluttered between hope and apprehension, unsure of what his appearance might mean. "How did you? I felt your call," he said softly, stepping closer to Ellie, who had momentarily frozen, her trembling becoming more pronounced with each passing second. His eyes flickered with a deep awareness, and I could see the steely resolve behind the kindness in his gaze as he assessed the situation. The doctor, equally taken by surprise, straightened his posture as Jacob moved to the side of Ellie's bed. "We only just started," he insisted, confusion spreading across his features. "We don't know." "It's okay," Jacob interrupted, a gentle yet firm cadence in his voice. "I'm here now, and that matters most." "Can I?" he asked, nodding toward Ellie. "Of course," I breathed out, still caught in the unpredictable shift of the unfolding scene. I wished fervently that he held the answer to our anguish, that somehow he could wave a wand and make everything right, but I also knew that magic rarely appeared without hard truths and sacrifices. As Jacob knelt beside Ellie, the air shifted again. He reached out, brushing his fingers lightly over her hands, coaxing them to stilled trembling. "Ellie," he said softly, making her look directly into his eyes, "I need you to listen to me, sweetheart. There's a light in you, and I want to help you find it. Will you let me?" Against the backdrop of uncertainty, the tiniest spark ignited in Ellie's eyes. For the first time in months, she might have seen a glimmer of possibility, something beyond the shadows that had loomed so long. Her fingers slowly relaxed beneath Jacob's gentle touch, a fragile peace settling over the room. "Okay," she croaked, a whisper of trust brimming with tentative courage. The doctor stepped back, clearly bewildered by the sudden change in dynamics in his own domain, and I couldn't blame him. I felt like an outsider in my own skin, my heart drumming fiercely as I willed Ellie to stay steady. With precision and tenderness, Jacob began working through a series of motions, guiding Ellie to focus on her breathing. Each breath expanded the space between us, creating a bubble of possibilities that seemed to shimmer under the weight of our despair. I could scarcely breathe myself, feeling an amalgamation of hope and fear twist tightly at the base of my throat, but as the moments unfolded, drawing out Ellie's strength, something deep within me burned with knowledge. This was no simple act, it was tethered to a swirling storm of truths I struggled to fathom. As Jacob imparted a rhythm to Ellie's breaths, I couldn't help but notice a distant flicker in his own eyes, an echo of purpose that felt far too familiar, woven through with shadows from my past. Caught in the swirl of memory, I held my breath, realization dawning in the quiet corners of my mind. "Is this why you returned?" I found myself asking, words bursting through the constraints of my anxiety. "To help my daughter, yes, but what do you need from us, Jacob?" He paused, locking eyes with me, a moment frozen in possibility, an unspoken understanding forming a bridge between us. "In helping her, I'm asking for more than you realize. Each moment of strength imbues with power, but we must be willing to embrace light and darkness both. Healing does not come without sacrifice." Before I could fully grasp what he meant, the room seemed to vibrate with an unseen energy, pulling us into an uncharted emotional terrain. Suddenly, an unexpected knock at the door rattled the moment. I turned to see a nurse standing in the threshold, wide-eyed with urgency. "Something's happening," she said, breathless. "We need your assistance, now." Panic surged anew within me, clashing against the fragile hope we had gathered, and in that instant, the air grew thick, charged with desperation. The moment rippled and fractured, the amulet still rested heavy in my palm, glowing faintly against the tension. "Mommy?" Ellie's voice sliced through the looming chaos, filled with a child's innocence yet tempered with an unmistakable pulse of understanding. "Do you think I can walk?" Tears poured down my face as I flitted my gaze between my daughter, Jacob, and the nurse. I was teetering at the edge of uncertainty, a precipice where hope and trepidation shared the same breath. "All of this," I whispered, dizzy with the weight of realization. "Is it right? Is it really hope?" "Sometimes," Jacob murmured, the power in his words wrapping around us like a life preserver. "Hope is the only thing that can lead us toward the light. Are you willing to step forward?" And as I faced the horizon painted with both dread and desire, a single thought flickered fiercely in my chest: we could change the narrative, but at what cost? The finality of the nurse's call bounced precariously around the four corners of our charged space, hanging like a thread that might snap at any moment. I was left teetering on the edge of something profound, a storm where hope and fear collided, leaving me poised for something unimaginable. As the nurse's words hung thick in the air, I felt the ground beneath me shift, the uncertainty twisted like a coiling viper, ready to strike. My heart raced, diverging in multiple directions, each pulse a different fear. In that instant, I knew that the crisis around us was not just physical but an emotional maelstrom that had the power to unravel everything we had desperately tried to weave back together. "Mommy?" Ellie's voice was louder now, a soft yet insistent plea for reassurance amid rising chaos. "Ellie, sweetheart, we'll get through this," I breathed, feeling my stomach churn with the weight of unspoken fears. She had faced so much, more than any child should, and seeing her still grounded in this moment gave me both strength and sorrow. "Do you really think I can walk?" Her question sank deep, a small child's hope colliding with the barriers erected by her illness, echoing with belief that felt both fragile and powerful. I clutched the amulet in my palm, feeling its warmth pulsing against my skin, a tether to the mystical possibilities Jacob spoke of. You must believe, Ellie. Believe that you can, I managed, casting a sideways glance at Jacob, who seemed to draw energy from the determination in her gaze. Yes, he affirmed, rising to his feet, capable and full of purpose. It's within you, Ellie. It always has been. There's a spark, together we can fan it into a flame. As the nurse fidgeted at the door, clearly torn between her duty and the moment unfolding within, Jacob offered a reassuring nod. Let's not waste time. There's no telling what's happening, and we need to prepare. Before I could process the urgency of his words, the room erupted into a flurry of commotion. The atmosphere thickened with anticipation, and I struggled to maintain my footing, both literally and metaphorically. Follow my lead, Jacob instructed, guiding Ellie to swing her legs over the side of the bed, his steady hands carefully helping her steady herself. All we ask is that you try. Just one step, love. Mommy. The utter vulnerability in her voice pierced through my heart. I saw the fear lingering there, like shadows beneath her resolute facade. What if it hurts? My breath hitched. What if it doesn't? I countered, trying to illuminate the glimmer of possibility ahead. We can face it together, even if stepping out of our shadows feels scary. With a tentative nod, she looked between us, her trust evidenced by the softness of her gaze and the way she melted into the assurance of our presence. It was a tiny, fragile thing, yet imbued with power impossible to ignore. Jacob bent closer, becoming a steady figure beside her. In this very moment, love is our anchor. Trust it, walk into it. Ellie took a steadying breath, and the room fell into a hushed reverie. My fingers clutched the amulet tighter, wishing for strength, wishing for clarity, wishing for a miracle. What if this was it? The moment our lives steeped entirely in hope or broken dreams? I had longed for her to hear the thrum of life while moving unburdened through the chaos. Okay, she whispered, her determination glistening amidst uncertainty. I'll try. In a heartbeat, she gripped the edge of the bed and lifted herself, albeit with shaky legs. Gasps echoed around us, reminded of the fragility of this delicate dance between healing and peril. Each moment stretched out like elastic, taut with expectation. With every cautious shift of her weight, I felt tethered to her, my heart syncopating with the rhythm of her struggle. But then a sudden spark of energy radiated through, illuminating her frame, and for an electric second, I dared to dream that this would be the moment that changed everything. Just one step, Ellie, just one. Jacob encouraged, his voice unwavering in its belief. The first step came cautiously, wobbly yet bright. Everything slowed, a fragile moment crystallized against time. For an instant, my breath caught in my throat. As if the universe held its breath alongside us. Then came the shattering sound of the door flinging wide, unleashing chaos from the hallway. A flurry of doctors rushed in, ushering in a whirlwind of urgency, sweeping the room like a storm. Code Blue. We're losing him. In an instant, my dreams crumbled into dust. Jacob's focus snapped back, and I felt a charge ripple through the air, like a rubber band stretched to its breaking point, leaving us dangling in anguish. The nurse rushed to the doorway, her attentiveness at odds with the hope that had just taken flight within Ellie's frail frame. Ellie! Stay with me! Jacob shouted, no longer beside my daughter but pulled into this frail light extinguished just as quickly as it had ignited. The promise I had seen in Ellie's face dimmed in the face of new urgency. My heart, still hammering with the intensity of the moment, split with an overwhelming surge of grief as I, too, felt the weight of helplessness descend upon us all. Mommy! Ellie cried out, fear threading through her voice, eyes reflecting the chaos of uncertainty. And as another heartbeat resonated in the silence that followed, an unexpected thought washed over me. What if the cost of hope was even greater than I could ever imagine? In that moment, with Ellie's plea igniting the flicker of my own strength, I knew we were trapped within a vortex of emotions. As I flew towards her, fighting against the swell of panic and uncertainty, the realization washed over me like a chilling wave. Light and darkness were intertwined, but which one would claim us in the end? The flurry of chaos collapsed around me like a shroud, swirling with panic and desperation. I reached for Ellie, but the din of the doctors entered my mind as a pained symphony. "Mommy!" She cried again, and in that moment, her voice was both my anchor and the tempest that threatened to drown me. I had never understood how thin the line was between hope and despair until that very second. It felt like both of my feet were slowly sinking into the earth, pulled down by the weight of all my fears as I fought to remain standing. "Ellie, I'm right here," I shouted, forcing the words out through the lump in my throat, desperate to bridge the gap between us. Behind the phalanx of emergency professionals, Jacob was locked in position, caught in a web of responsibility. I could see it etched on his face, the strain of a man bearing not just his own weight but all of ours. The nurse, her brows knit together in concentration, waved me back. "You need to stay here," she insisted as she ushered the urgency within the room. Her voice was firm but not unkind, and for a split second, her eyes softened as she glanced between Ellie and me, unspoken empathy passing like a gentle caress. "Breathe, sweetheart," I urged Ellie, feeling the tremors in her tiny body radiate like ripples in water. "Just breathe with me." I took a slow breath in and then out, trying to share my strength. As I watched her mimic my movements, there was a flicker of determination sparking amidst her fear, something I clung to desperately. Behind the medical team, another nurse slipped into the room, her demeanor calm amidst the active surge of chaos. I'd never seen her before, but she possessed an uncanny stillness that drew my eye. She knelt down beside Ellie, her voice lowered to a whisper. "You can do this. You are stronger than you realize, and I believe in you." It was like a beam of warmth cutting through the cold dread that grasped my heart. Could it be possible that a simple act of kindness offered in the storm of despair could bear the weight of a miracle? The light in Ellie's eyes flickered even brighter, the small pocket of hope swelling at that moment amidst the encroaching darkness. "We've got a lot of love here for you," I added, my voice cracking slightly but resolute. "Remember that, honey. We're in this together." Tears brimmed in Ellie's eyes as she focused on the new nurse. "You believe that too?" she asked, her voice trembling, a thread of innocence piercing the chaos. "Absolutely," the nurse affirmed with sincerity. "Sometimes, it's the tiniest glimmers of light like the love you have around you that guide us when everything feels heavy." I end those swirling seconds, with every step the professionals took towards the crisis unfolding in the corner, space contracted, drawing our souls tightly together in that small healing chamber. Ellie's breath began to sync with mine, and I saw the strength beneath her gaze, a delicate phoenix at the edge of rising. Then came the sound of a monitor, the rhythmic beat punctuating the air with a relentless insistence. Each sound echoed like the pounding of my heart, reminding me of the time slipping away, our moment held hostage by tragedy. "Stay with me, Ellie. Please." Jacob shouted through the fray, the fierce determination amplifying his protective aura. I noticed the tension rippling through him, ignited by the fire of hope shifted dangerously close to the embers of despair. As the chaos intensified, the unexpected nurse turned to us, eyes gleaming like a lighthouse through a hazy fog. "Let's build on that strength. I want Ellie to envision where her little feet will take her. Can you help me?" With a sudden twist of fate, she motioned for Ellie to describe her dream place, somewhere she'd want to walk. Ellie's eyes lit up, aglow amid the harsh reality, and her stuttered explanation poured from her as if she were weaving a tapestry of vivid colors: magical forests, the sun-drenched beach, and even the park where laughter echoed freely. "Oh, I'd love to go there," the nurse remarked as she encouraged Ellie to paint a picture in her mind. Together, they built the setting from the bricks of her dreams, layer by layer, breathing life into possibility, all while I stood back, almost paralyzed with awe. "Jacob," I called, breaking through the ambient fears swirling around us. "Help her envision it. Feed that hope." As he joined, words taken from our own dreams floated around us, simple yet navigational visions that would help guide Ellie forward. I could feel it coalescing into a force greater than any of us may have anticipated, where kindness bore its own weighty significance amid the tumult. In that moment of solidarity, a sudden change coursed through Ellie. The tremors in her hands began to lessen, the fear that carved lines into her face softened. It was like watching a flower break through layers of frost as she inhaled deeply, summoning the magic we had all penned together silently. But just as the light began to spread, piercing through the shadows, an unforeseen exclamation rang out, a voice shouting amidst the emergency responses. "He's crashing!" The surge of urgency forced all of us back, away from Ellie and into the encroaching darkness, and I felt my world shift with the realization that just as hope had risen, it too could crumble away. Our fragile dream of recovery, of walking, of healing hung suspended in the fragility of the moment. I watched as Ellie's spirit wavered, eyes wide and brimming with the duality of hope and fear stabbing through her resolve, and in that breathless split second, when everything teetered on the precipice of possibility and fear, I understood the path to healing was not a straight line but a dance woven into the fabric of our existence, where shadows and light coalesced in a harmony that could still be shattered at any moment. That starkly beautiful reality echoed within me, and now, dread clawed its way across my heart. What if we stood at the crossroads of change only to find ourselves drawn back into turmoil, pulled into unseen destinies? I resolved silently, pushing back against the tide of uncertainty. Ellie needed me no more than ever, believing that kindness could bridge any gap. My heart steeled. I could not let this moment slip away. The bright fluorescent lights flickered above us, casting a sterile glow that only heightened the surrealism of the situation. My heart raced, pounding like a drum against my ribcage as the flurry of activity surged back toward the four walls that now confined us. The echoes of professional jargon and frantic beeping merged into a dark symphony that threatened to drown out the whispers of hope. "Stay back." The command pulled me out of my spiraling thoughts, but I had no choice but to watch as medical professionals swarmed the corner where Ellie had just begun to emerge from her cocoon of fear. I steadied myself against the cold wall, my hands trembling while my instinct screamed at me to break through the barrier separating us. Her small form felt miles away. The nurse I had only just met was still holding Ellie's gaze, but the calmness that had washed over my daughter had begun to stutter. I could see if fleeting joy tried to cling to her, but the fear that unfurled as chaos swept in was palpable. "Please!" I cried, my voice a raw plea that reverberated within the confines of my heart. "She needs to hold on to that light. Don't let it go." In that moment, something shifted. With an indomitable will, Jacob stepped forward, his protective instincts activated. "Ellie! Look at me!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the oppressive atmosphere, shattering the illusion of distance that hung between us. "Focus on your dream, your favorite place. Remember the beach? The sand between your toes? The waves?" With every word he spoke, I saw Ellie's small body react. It was as if Jacob was pulling her back with a fine thread leading to the safety of a distant shore. It was an image of something more than just the beach, it was hope. Picture the children playing, the sun beaming down. You can hear the laughter, can't you? He pressed on, his own eyes glistening with raw sincerity. Ellie nodded, the motion deliberate yet fragile, like a leaf on the verge of letting go. But I could see the lines of resistance painted across her face, where the tension of fear and that fading hope danced furiously together. That flicker of determination began to fade as she caught a glimpse of the ongoing emergency around her. Suddenly, a sharp gasp erupted from the commentators around us, pulling our attention away momentarily. "They're losing him!" A voice cried somewhere behind the nurses, their urgency cracking the delicate orchestration of our moment. Fear latched onto me like a parasite, gnawing away at my fortitude. All at once, the weight of worry snatched the fragile thread connecting us and pulled it taut. My breath came in ragged gasps, the air growing thick and oppressive as I struggled to contain the tempest of emotion raging within me. Then the new nurse, the one with the calming presence, moved closer to Ellie, her hand gently intertwining with my daughter's tiny fingers. "Ellie, let's not lose the light," she coaxed softly, her voice a hush amidst the storm. "Remember what we were building moments ago, the world you're creating in your mind. Every step you take can lead you there. Can I go to the beach?" Ellie's voice trembled out, small and questioning, yet laced with the faintest touch of defiance. "Yes." The nurse's affirmation surged with the warmth of promise. "You will. We're all here with you. Together, every step you take brings you closer to I. In that sheer moment of vulnerability, our hearts entwined, mine aching for Ellie, the life she deserved, the laughter I longed to hear again without fear. And then I remembered the stories I used to tell her at night, the magical adventures full of bravery and wisdom. Ellie, I began, my voice trembling but solid. Picture us all there, on the shore. You, me, Jacob, your friends. We would make sandcastles, and we would run in the waves. Outside the pandemonium, the flame of Ellie's spirit flickered again. I clung to that flicker. Just think of their laughter, and remember how happy you felt. You can feel it in your heart. Focus on that. But as those soothing words slipped from my lips, a chilling realization hit me: it wasn't just Ellie's strength at stake, it was ours as a family. The weight of my own fears collided with the possibility that our bindings could unravel at any moment. Mommy, I'm scared. Ellie's confession clawed at the edges of my heart, bursting through the wall I had tried to maintain. Tears pooled in her eyes, glistening under the harsh lights that suddenly felt more oppressive than ever. I know, baby. But it's okay to be scared. We're going to face it together, I whispered, ready to let my own fears seep into the floor beneath me. The lights above buzzed and flickered as if they too were battling the overwhelming presence of despair. In that space of vulnerability, a voice from the chaos demanded attention. What do we have? A new doctor surged into the room, his tone urgent yet collected. We need to stabilize him now. Hope quivered at the edges of our perception as Ellie's grip tightened around the nurse's hand, her little fingers interlacing with a strength I dared to believe in. But as the storm swirled around us, my vision blurred. The lights above seemed to pulse rhythmically, sparking a panic that twisted deep within my gut, and suddenly, I felt a terrible rush of a terrible thought blooming before me. What if this was it? What if our fragile dance with hope and despair was no longer a dance? What if this was the moment where everything shifted? In that haunting split second, a shocking realization coursed through me, a realization that this chaos might not only confront Ellie's life but ours as a family, potentially unraveling the very bonds that held us together. With that thought etched in my mind, I looked at Ellie's ice-glimmering pools of innocence caught in a storm. The winds of fate began to howl around us, but I made a promise, my resolve steeled anew. Regardless of what shadows loomed ahead, I would fight with every fiber of my being for Ellie's chance to walk into her dreams. My love, heavy yet resolute, twisted back down into that room filled with uncertainty. In a fragile moment teetering between serenity and devastation, I felt unmoored, searching for strength, yet it was within those small silences where hope silently beckoned. And then, as if the universe conspired against our hearts, the lights above flickered once more, and with that, the promise of a dark truth emerged, leaving our world hanging in a fragile balance. In that impending silence, I understood. The journey was just beginning, and every moment counted more than ever before. The sterile atmosphere of the hospital pulsed with restless energy, breathing life into the tight-knit web of emotions swirling around us. Each beep of the machines mingled with the muffled whispers and hurried footsteps, a cacophony that felt almost sinister in its urgency. As I kept my focus on Ellie, I could feel the gravity of our situation sink further into the marrow of my bones. Breathe, Ellie. Focus on me. Jacob's voice remained tethered to our daughter as I sank back into the moment, desperate to become a bastion of stability for her. My heart swelled with gratitude for his presence. Without him, the weight on my shoulders might have swallowed me whole. But as I glanced toward him, his expression mirrored my own internal chaos, an intricate braid of anxiety woven through determination. Where's the beach? Where am I? Ellie's voice wavered, caught between dreams and nightmares, as her small body trembled against the swirling backdrop of white coats and blue scrubs. I took a deep breath, steeling myself against the flood of despair threatening to carry us away. The beach is near, love. Picture us there, the waves lapping at your feet. You can feel the warmth of the sun. The nurse's movements surrounded her, yet I endeavored to construct an illusion of safety, wrapping her in the embrace of our cherished memories, holding more beauty than the chaos surrounding us. It was a small moment, but I saw a flicker of recognition lighting Ellie's features, a glimmering thread of hope woven through the fabric of her fear. Yes, I can feel it. She closed her eyes, the tension softening as she sank further into the vision I'd painted. Encouraged, I leaned closer. And remember how you built those giant sandcastles? How you made friends with everyone around? I felt echoes of past laughter reverberating in my chest, a melody I longed to recapture. But before I could summon the courage to keep weaving our world of dreams, a nurse stepped into my line of vision, offering an unexpected warmth amidst the chaos. "Would you like me to read her a story?" It was a small gesture, but an anchor in a storm of discomfort. With a nod, I sanctioned this light to shine, silently thanking her for every inch of kindness. Ellie's eyes fluttered open, curiosity breaking through the haze of fear that twisted like ivy through our hearts and locked us in this endless cycle of dread. "Story?" she echoed, her voice thin like a fragile strand of silk. "Yes, a story," the nurse said with a bright smile, her confidence radiating from her. "What do you want to hear about? Mermaids? Turtles?" She glanced at me, her eagerness spilling out with hopeful positivity, igniting sparks in the darkness clouding our minds. "Mermaids." Ellie's voice rang out stronger now, the anticipation dancing across her features like sunlight piercing through clouds. As the nurse began to weave a tale of shimmering waves and daring underwater adventures, I felt an ember ignite inside me. Though the reality around us remained grim and unyielding, that small understanding began to fracture the overwhelming weight of hopelessness. Jacob and I exchanged glances, and for a brief moment, the veil of despair lifted as laughter slipped through the cracks, the shared solace of watching Ellie lose herself in a world of her own creation. But beneath the surface, I felt shadows gathering once more, a gnawing sensation that we could be standing on the precipice of something we weren't ready to confront. The air felt charged, pregnant with unspoken fears. My heart raced with uncertainty, beating a morose rhythm against the thrill of the moment. As the story unfolded, something shifted abruptly. An alarm wailed in the distance, the sound barreling towards us. It shattered our fragile bubble, causing every heartbeat to resonate with dread. The comforting ambience of the room flickered, replaced by the stark reality unfolding beyond those walls. Fear gripped me again as I met Jacob's gaze. "Stay here, Ellie. We'll be right back," I promised, slipping my fingers free from the warmth that surrounded me. Against my better judgment, I ventured into the hallway, driven by the instinct to uncover the truth. That Lamento discern the cause of that unsettling alarm. The fluorescent lights here felt far harsher, a biting contrast to the comforting glow inside Ellie's room. As I turned the corner, I saw a flurry of medics rushing past, urgency etched across their features. "Doctor, this is a critical situation. We need assistance in room 3. Time is of the essence." Their words washed over me, drowning my thoughts in a cascade of sheer panic. Room 3. That was the room my heart clung to with every waking thought. The stark realization knocked the breath from my lungs, reminding me that others stood in similar shadows, mothers and fathers, all confined by the same relentless storms. Just then, an older woman stepped into view, her eyes reaching for mine amidst the chaos, filled with an unexpected compassion. "They're doing everything they can," she said, her voice soft yet steady. "You have to hold on to hope." Her kindness struck me like a lifeline, though I felt marooned in despair. "My daughter," I trailed off, struggling against the tide of my own fears. "That I know. But hold on to that story they're sharing. We've been told that stories can build bridges over storms. Your daughter can sense your love through it all," she said, placing a gentle hand on my arm. It grounded me, however fleeting amid the frantic pace of urgency unfolding. "Hold on to hope," I echoed, as if it were a mantra battle cry against the impending tide of despair that threatened to engulf us once more. But as I turned away, my heart clenched painfully, not only for Ellie's uncertain journey ahead but for the entire family. The delicate thread was fraying, the comfort of hope beginning to unravel with every harrowing moment drawn out in the corridors of uncertainty. That I headed back toward Ellie, each step heavy, filled with the dread of what awaited us all. I clenched my jaw, determined to shield her from the impending storm. Yet, the truth loomed just beyond the threshold, an uncharted territory filled with elusive truths. When I stepped back into the room, Ellie brightened, her curious eyes sparkling with hope. "Did you hear the story?" she asked, thrilled as if nothing outside mattered. "Every word, my love," I replied, forcing a smile as real as I could muster. In that precious moment, I vowed to imprison every glimmer of light amidst the darkness. But as time slipped away, there remained a whisper, a dark familiarity curling in the corners of my mind. Something deep inside warned me. The truth was coming, potential and peril lying just beneath the surface. As I tucked Ellie's hair behind her ear, the flickering lights above cast ominous shadows that matched the sudden doubt lurking in the recesses of my heart, and just like that, the room descended into another heavy pause. Something dark loomed, a revelation I was not yet prepared to face, clutching at the thin strands of hope we desperately needed to hold on to. The universe seemed to shift beneath us, a tremor hinting at the turbulent journey still stretching ahead. The next hours bled into a haze of half-formed thoughts and swirling emotions, punctuated only by whispered updates from the medical staff and the fading echoes of a story that had painted a temporary respite. As night cloaked the hospital in shadows, time lost its meaning, a fluid dance between hope and despair stretching taut around us like an invisible tether. My eyes flicked to the clock, each tick reverberating in a cacophonous symphony of uncertainty. Jacob remained at Ellie's side, his fingers tangled with hers, lending strength where words faltered. The stillness of the room felt profound, as if holding its breath in anticipation of what was to come. I could see the lines of worry deepening on his forehead, mirroring the whirlwind chaos inside me. Ellie drifted in and out of slumber, her breath steady yet fragile like a spider's silk thread glistening with dew. The nurse quietly tiptoed in, checking her vitals, her face conveying a blend of concern and professionalism that was both reassuring and terrifying. "Are you okay?" I asked her, desperate for even the smallest morsel of light amidst the gathering storm. She paused, an understanding flickering in her eyes. "She's stable right now, and we're doing everything we can," she replied softly. "The doctors will be checking on her soon." "You're amazing, staying so strong for her, thank you," I murmured, touched by her kindness. It was in those small moments, the warmth of a stranger's compassion against the chill of fear, that I found the strength to press forward. As the night wore on, I felt the walls of our reality closing in, each sound amplified in the silence, the dinging of an IV pump, the shuffling of feet in the corridor, the soft murmurs of people emerging from their own burdens. I couldn't shake the feeling of isolation pressing against me, an impenetrable fog overcasting the spark of connection. I stepped outside, needing to breathe free of the hospital's suffocating desolation. The hallway stretched endlessly, illuminated by the sterile fluorescent lights, but I forged on, tracing the edge of uncertainty through the labyrinth of despair. At that moment, everything felt too raw, our shared heartbreak etched into my soul. It was in that solitude that I stumbled upon an empty waiting room, a brief sanctuary within the storm. A dog-eared book lay open on the table, its pages adorned with children's illustrations, and I reached for it instinctively. Opening it, I was enveloped by an old familiar scent, years of shared stories flooding back. I lost myself in those pages, words weaving their magic, offering a fragile sense of comfort. Bit by bit, the stories unfolded, whispers reminding me of life beyond these sterile walls, urging the flicker of hope to rise once more. Suddenly, a memory surged, the laughter we shared on family road trips, singing along to our favorite songs while Ellie curled up with her crayons, drawing fantastical creatures on the front seat's embrace. It felt achingly distant yet tantalizingly close, illuminating the way forward through darkness. The door creaked open behind me, pulling me from my reverie. It was Jacob, his expression weary yet brightening as our eyes met. "I was looking for you," he said softly, stepping into the warm light that illuminated the stark room. "I needed a moment," I confessed. "It's just sometimes I forget there's still beauty in the world. We haven't lost everything." His eyes softened, a small smile breaking through the storm. "Let's keep holding on to that." For her, right, I squeezed his hand, feeling the energy pass between us. As if an invisible string of support bound our hearts together, fortifying the framework we had built to support Ellie through this tumult. What if we used the stories to help her? To remind her of who she is? His brow furrowed thoughtfully. "You mean to create a world around her even when she's struggling?" "Yes. The mermaids, the adventures, how they fought through storms to find their way back. We could turn her story into a mantra." The spark of our shared idea ignited a flicker of joy in both our hearts, even in this darkness. We Exchanged determined looks, almost as if we could see a path emerging through the haze. As we began to discuss how we would stitch together those narratives, a sudden commotion echoed from the corridor once more. Voices rose, and the atmosphere shifted, thick with urgency and dread. My stomach clenched, an instinctual response warning me that something was off, that our fleeting sense of hope was at risk of being swept away once again. That we rushed toward the noise, fear clawing at my insides. What was happening? Why did it feel as though a curtain was lifting, revealing a truth we weren't ready to face? And then I saw him. A doctor, flanked by a few nurses, walking toward us with an expression that cut deeper than any knife. A torrent of words bubbled in my throat, but they died before reaching my lips. "Mr. and Mrs. Smith," he began, his voice steady yet flooded with gravity, "we need to talk to you about Ellie and what comes next." The world around me fell silent, the walls contracting with each word, pulling us inside a whirlpool of fear and uncertainty. My heartbeat thundered, drowning out everything. A predatory echo foretelling an upheaval. As dread washed over me like frigid water, I grasped Jacob's hand tighter, feeling the bond between us solidify in the face of what lay ahead. "Please, what is it?" I managed to whisper, praying for answers, for clarity, for hope. And just like that, we stood on the brink of revelation, the unknown creeping closer, ready to unveil the shadows lurking within our fragile, flickering world. The air grew heavy as the doctor's eyes locked onto ours, a storm of unspoken words crackling with tension in the stillness. I could sense the entire waiting room shift, the collective breath of anxious onlookers, each one holding onto their own threads of hope and despair. "Ellie's situation is more complicated than we initially believed," he said, his voice deliberately measured, as if each syllable was precious. "We've done everything we can, but the prognosis is serious. We need to discuss the next steps in her care." Next steps. The phrase echoed in my mind, the meaning of it heavy and laden with finality. "What do you mean?" I pressed, my voice barely a whisper, torn between the heavy weight of impending grief and the flicker of determination that still coursed through me. "The injury has affected more than just her immediate physical condition. She will require rehabilitation, possibly longer than we had anticipated, to regain her mobility if she can regain it at all," he explained, his professional facade cracking just slightly as he caught my gaze. With each word, I felt as though I was suspended between two worlds, the world where Ellie was defiant, drawing fantastical beasts while we sang silly songs, and this new, unforgiving reality painted in stark tones of possibility and fear. "Can she walk again?" Jacob's voice broke through my turmoil, raw and filled with a mixture of desperation and horrified disbelief. The doctor hesitated, his gaze drifting to the ground. "There are no guarantees. However, we have some programs we can recommend: intensive physical therapy, and perhaps even some experimental treatments." "Experimental?" I echoed, my heart racing as every fiber of my being revolted against the unknown. "What does that mean for her?" "Some involve newer approaches that can aid in recovery, but they also pose risks. It's a choice that we can explore together," he replied, his voice a steady anchor amidst the waves of chaos. "Risk." The word hung in the air, thickening the tension that had already gripped my heart. We had faced so much, ventured through darkness, and now we were being asked to navigate yet an even murkier path. "What if we don't choose?" I whispered, unable to shake off the weight of despair that tightened around my chest. "What if we do nothing?" The silence that followed felt like a crushing tide, each glance exchanged between Jacob and me falling heavier than the last. The doctor's expression grew somber. "There's a possibility that attendance to her needs could lead to a loss of further capabilities. Time is of the essence." The implications were catastrophic. My mind raced, grappling with trembling thoughts that flickered of the life we once had and the haunting questions of what came next. "We need to talk, just us," I said through gritted teeth, forcing a semblance of composure as I glanced at Jacob. The doctor respectfully nodded, giving us space and retreating into the shadows of the corridor. "Jacob," I began, struggling to articulate the ferocity of my emotions as they clawed their way up. "What if the risk is worth it? What if we can't just sit back and watch her disappear into this?" He looked at me, uncertainty lining his eyes. Still, beneath it all, I could see the flicker of the flame we had kindled just moments before. I want her to walk again. I want her to have every chance, he replied, anguish simmering just beneath his resolve. A silence descended, thickening around us, yet I could feel that fragile thread of hope we had woven as delicate as it was significant, binding our hearts tightly together. We had to make a decision, knowing full well that whatever we chose could ripple infinitely into our future, shaping the lives we had envisioned against the backdrop of our love. We should push for the experimental. We owe it to her to us, I whispered, fear flooding my voice, but determination blooming just the same. Jacob nodded slowly, a small spark of defiant strength igniting in his eyes. Then that's what we will do, he said firmly. A renewed sense of purpose surged through me, momentarily pushing aside the dread that loomed close. I grasped Jacob's hand, feeling the warmth between us rise in opposition to the cold reality of our situation. Yet, just as I began to feel an inkling of renewal, a familiar figure entered the room, bringing with it an unexpected twist of fate. It was Ellie's friend, Lily, eyes brimming with worry but holding a subtle spark of determination. Is Ellie okay? She asked, breathless, her voice trembling slightly but filled with a fierce resolve. I heard she was in here, and I wanted to help. The question slipped from my lips as I exchanged glances with Jacob. Yeah. We could maybe do story time. Ellie loves the stories I made for her. It always makes her smile. I can even bring more illustrations, Lily declared, her spirit unwavering despite the fear etched on her youthful face. The innocence of her offer struck me like a bolt of lightning, a reminder of the simple beauty we were fighting for. Suddenly, the seriousness of our reality was drawn alongside the capacity to create joy amidst it, a world where Ellie could find the magic we had once shared, even if sustained within the constraints of a hospital room. Maybe we could bring a little piece of that world to her, Jacob said thoughtfully, a hint of a smile creeping across his lips. Yes. If we can remind her of that hope, maybe it might help, I added, buoyed by the community of support we had unwittingly assembled around our daughter. But as the three of us stood there, united in purpose, relishing the spark of friendship and unexpected warmth glowing against the isolation, we were suddenly joined by another arrival, this time delivering a cold wave of uncertainty. Excuse me, another nurse interrupted gently, her voice mingled with urgency. We've received further updates about Ellie and the treatments. There are some complications. My heart sank further, the flickering resolve threatening to extinguish as dread swelled within me. What now? The room seemed to close in around us once more, the delicate strands of hope we had rekindled hanging delicately, precariously by a thread, and as that impending revelation loomed closer, each moment drawing tighter, I braced myself for the storm yet to come in our battle for Ellie's future. The room felt like a heavy cloak draped over me, suffocating in its intensity. I could feel the weight of uncertainty pressing down as the nurse's words echoed in the silence. There are complications. My heart pounded against my ribs, an unsettling rhythm underscoring the tension that had settled in. I glanced at Jacob, and together, we exchanged a look that spoke volumes. This was not what we had signed up for. What complications? I managed to ask, my voice steady despite the turmoil roiling inside me. The nurse hesitated, the gravity of her role evident in each measured breath she took. Ellie's body is responding differently than expected to the treatment we anticipate. There's a chance that the experimental procedure might not yield the results we had hoped for. The room began to spin around me, an unsettling whirlwind of fear and turmoil. What do you mean not yield results? We have to do something. I exclaimed, desperation lacing my words as the edges of my resolve threatened to fray. Please, let's discuss. The nurse's gentle tone was soothing, but it did little to quell the volcano of emotions bubbling just beneath the surface. I didn't want to ponder a future where Ellie's laughter could be replaced with silence, where our memories were forever tinged with regret. Mommy. A quiet voice cut through the storm rising within me, soft yet firm. It was Ellie, her weary eyes already searching mine for the answers that seemed elusive. What are they saying? Am I going to be okay? My heart seized with the ache of a mother's love, one that dared to protect, dared to hope. In that moment, the world shrank down to just her, to the space where I had to wield every ounce of bravery I had left. I knelt beside her bed so our eyes could align, meeting her gaze with all the determination I could muster. They're just telling us, sweetheart, that we need to keep believing. We're all going to fight for you, just like we always have. A flicker of doubt shadowed her innocence, and I felt Jacob's hand on my back, a silent reaffirmation of our unity. It's just a bump in the road, Ellie, he added, kneeling down beside me. Roads can be bumpy, but you have so many people who love you. We're here to help you find your way back to the beach and the magical forest, he said with conviction, alluding to the stories Ellie had once adored. Hope flickered within her eyes, vulnerability intertwined with trust. You promise? She whispered, her voice fragile. I promise, we won't stop fighting for you, I affirmed, locking onto her gaze, letting love spill from every word as I willed my heart into her own. No matter what happens, we're in this together. Lily stood at the edge of the doorway, her cherubic face alight with determination amidst the shadow of uncertainty. And they'll be here for you too, Ellie. I can bring more stories. More drawings. We'll tell tales until the stars come out. The sight of her unwavering spirit expelling the darkness from the air created a light that felt infectious. My heart warmed with gratitude, and I found myself nodding. That's right. Together, we'll create a world of wonder, one where you can run and play just like before. A gentle smile began to form on Ellie's lips, glimmers of hope igniting in her eyes. But as Lily began to weave tales of fantastical adventures, the nurse stepped closer, seemingly reassured by the warmth filling the room. It's important to remember that hope alone may not be enough. We will proceed carefully, monitoring Ellie's response to any treatments to ensure she is stable. But the emotional support she receives will also play a significant role in her healing. That I had expected a lesson on the medical steps we would take next, but what we had created was a sanctuary of love wrapped in positivity, and I began to see the flicker of interwoven destinies bringing our family together like threads of a tapestry. What if every story we told, every adventure we shared, could light the way ahead? Let's do it, I said, my voice rising with renewed fervor. Let's cover every wall in here with stories of the places we've been and the places we dream to go. Let's fill this room with adventure. Ellie's small gasp echoed with surprise, and I could see her spirit lift as colors painted the corners of her imagination once more. Like the time we camped in the backyard? And told the stories under the stars, yes. Jacob and I said in unison. Just like that. And the times we spent at the beach, building castles, splashing in the waves, the laughter, the joy. We can paint that, Ellie. As the night stretched on, filled with voices harmonizing in laughter and connection, I found myself holding on to that precious thread of hope tightly. I knew the future was uncertain, and there could be shadows lurking just beyond the bright light of our dreams. But at that moment, all I could feel was the depth of love surrounding us, marvelous threads weaving an intricate tapestry of lives entwined. That it was Ellen, nestled in the bed, who would rewrite the story she'd carry forward, her steps guided not solely by her physical journey, but by the strength of all the love woven around her. As the sun dipped beyond the horizon, casting a warm glow into the room, I looked at my familiarly fragile, beautiful family and understood the greatest gift I could give Ellie, the belief that her journey mattered, that she was seen, loved, and cherished, with every step towards healing as crucial as the last. That I in that moment, as laughter bounced off the walls and stories of magic resumed weaving through our hearts, I knew one undeniable truth: while the road ahead could be long, together we would face it, stride by stride. And through our collective light, I whispered a silent vow to the universe, hoping our voices would carry just as strongly as my heart. No matter where this journey may lead us, we will keep walking forward together. And that's when I knew, the heart could still bloom amid darkness, navigating the tumultuous waves of uncertainty, each beat a silent testament that we would never walk alone again.